Hello and welcome back to Raise a Trident. My name is Jake, and today I have a really fun video for Father's Day. It has nothing to do with dads or being fathers, but if you're a father, shout out to you. But today I have a returning guest. Ty from Locked On Mariners is back on the channel for a really special video. How's it going, Ty?
What's up, Jake? Appreciate you having me on.
Of course, of course. Well, I felt like we are getting close to the halfway mark somewhat. You know, All-Star break is in about a month or so. I was gonna save this video for the All-Star break itself, but I thought, you know what, there's been so much stuff that has happened already this year. Why not? We're gonna do a almost mid-season awards, and I picked 10 different prompts and awards that we're going to give out today. Some good, mostly good, because, you know, I'm trying to be as positive as I can, but some bad as well. So, you know, we're gonna cover all our bases today. And I think, you know, it's fun. The Mariners are 41-31 right now, so we're 72 games into the season, leading the division by 6.5 games somehow, some way. They are making it happen. Just last night, they won Game 1 against Texas Rangers. This will be out on Father's Day, recording this before Game 2, so hopefully Nathan Eovaldi doesn't ruin our entire lives tonight. We'll see.
We'll see.
Probably will happen, but
Colby's at the ballpark tonight, so we'll see.
We'll see.
However, I will say every time that he's in attendance when George Kirby is pitching, Kirby like goes on to have one of the best starts of his entire life. He was there for the Diamondback start, which we might talk about here a little later on in this video.
I think we will.
He was also there for obviously Game 3 of the ALDS, which was insane outing from Kirby. And he was there for the Orioles start, the one that George kind of got left out to dry by his offense last year.
So he has like pretty good luck when it comes to George Kirby. It feels like any other time it feels like has the worst time in the world. It feels like so.
Well, and Jake, you know, as always, you know, the Mariners fall down like 1-0 in the first inning. It's over.
Yep,
it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. This lead feels insurmountable. This is usually the worst.
That's an L.
Yeah, exactly. Today we're gonna get into the first award. First being, which player so far this year has been the biggest surprise so far? So we will start with you. Who do you think has been the biggest surprise?
So I assume you mean this in a positive light. Correct.
It can be however you want it to be, but I do think number 2 kind of makes it so you should probably pick the positive one.
Yeah, I went with a positive one here. Josh Rojas. I thought about Luke Raley as well. I also want to throw out Austin Voth real quick, because Voth has actually been really good. He's pitching out of his preferred role, but he's been really good this year. He's been one of the more solid relievers on the Mariners bullpen, which, you know, partly says more about the Mariners bullpen right now and the state of it than anything, but Voth has been really solid this year. So I wanted to shout him out. But yeah, Rojas, I mean, like, he gets off to the insane offensive start. He's been great defensively. I mean, the metrics love him. He's like +8 outs above average right now. He's been really, really good over there. Has made some big plays over there as well. Some underrated plays, too, I might add, late in games that have saved runs, that have possibly saved games for the Mariners. So yeah, Rojas is my pick here for sure.
Yeah, and I really like that Rojas pick. He was kind of my flag guy. I know you guys do that towards the beginning of the year. That was my guy going into this season. I thought he was going to have a really good year. I really liked him at the end of last year. He had a really good, month for us when he came through the Seawald trade, and I really especially liked his swing. I for some reason I thought it worked perfectly for our ballpark. That kind of lefty, kind of like pick it up out of the ground and place it right into the grass and right field swing. But yeah, he's been really great for us, and especially defensively, as you said. Like, it's just, we had that worry when Suarez goes away. Obviously, the bat is what it is, but we knew he was Gold Glove caliber third baseman. Were we going to get that with Luis Urias or Josh Rojas? Probably not, but Rojas is making his case. I mean, he's definitely, holding
He's
his
been
own.
significantly better than Gino this year. And statistically speaking, I'm not watching Giants games, right? I'll admit that, but like, he's been like statistically way better than Chapman as well.
Yeah, so I really like what he's been doing this year. It's been really nice that he's been able to pick up that third base hole that were at least what we thought was going to be a hole for this year. My pick for the biggest surprise, someone you did not mention, I'm actually going to go with Ty France, because I wasn't positive he was going to have the bounce back year. I was trying to be optimistic with it. Obviously, he went to Driveline, all that stuff about, going to Driveline saves your career type stuff.
Mm.
I wasn't too positive. We also know he almost got non-tendered last year. And, other than the injury that he's on right now with his fractured heel, he's been basically one of your best hitters this season. He has a slash line of 261, 336, 403 for a 116 WRC plus, which I can't say I was expecting for Ty France. So,
Well, especially with the way the year started for him.
exactly. Yeah. And he's shown some pop. He already has 7 home runs. He only had 12 last year. So, I mean, he may be around that 12 again. However, it feels like the home runs are coming a bit more frequently than they did last year. And just the fact that he hasn't been a black hole at first base has been important, because there was just that big
Yeah.
question mark on would he do enough to to stay a Mariner past 2024. Now, I don't know if he has. I would be, there's the argument to make that you should probably still look for a better alternative for sure,
Mhm.
especially someone who has a bit more power to them. But who knows who that's going to be? I mean, that your really only option for that's Pete Alonso, so who knows how that's going to go. So yeah, that's my pick for the biggest surprise. Ty France, the new dad. He's shown his dad power, and I've been really impressed with how he's held his own this season with all the question marks around him.
He has been really good lately. It's unfortunate that the injury happened when it did, because he was running like a 199 WRC plus over his last couple weeks or so before the injury. You mentioned the overall numbers on the year. Most of that has been pretty recent. He was around, like a 90-ish WRC plus to start the year. We all know that, he was hitting the ball really hard, but the launch angle was so low, so he was hitting into a lot of hard grounders. And it felt like, okay, like the process is pretty sound. It's just the results aren't really there. So the results ultimately going to come, and then, we get about a month and a half, almost 2 months into the season, and it's still not really happening for him. But then he really turned it on right there before the injury happened. So I'm just hoping that, once he gets back from the injury, and it doesn't seem like he's somehow, some way not going to miss a ton of time here. We'll see if he can if he can pick up where he left off. At the very least, he'll have, plenty of sample size in theory here to decide if he's going to be able to be a part of this thing for the rest of the year, or if they're going to have to do something different and, go after Pete Alonso, go after Christian Walker, go after Vlad Jr., whoever.
Going into number 2, obviously we're going to go down to the negativity section here. Who has been the biggest disappointment on the year? For me, I thought it was pretty obvious. I picked Jorge Polanco, because coming
Yep.
into the year, I mean, I thought he was going to be the big, solution to our problem at second base. I thought he was going to be that superstar bat with Julio Rodriguez, to be honest with you. He's been consistent his whole entire career. He's been an above average hitter for almost a decade now. And I know he turned 30. Some people have made it seem like that, oh, you should expect the fall off right at 30. Yeah, you can expect a gradual decline, but not like falling off a cliff like he did. He's at a 79 WRC plus for the season. And, obviously he's been on the IL for almost a month now with hamstring issues. Probably not going to be back for another at least few weeks, I would imagine. So it's just that second base hole that you thought you filled with the perfect guy, like literally the perfect guy. It's just Ryan Bliss now, and it's a question mark again, which is really frustrating. So
Yeah.
with the amount of hype that came into the season, I feel like it has to be Polanco. I would say you could, say maybe Garver, but he's starting to heat up now. He needs to keep his pants as, up around the knees. That's my theory, is that he just absolutely
No elbow
breaks.
guard either.
Exactly.
He's got to let that elbow hang out.
Exactly.
That's been the key, of course.
Of course, yeah, it clearly matters. So yeah, my biggest disappointment so far, hopefully it changes around, is going to be Jorge Polanco.
Yeah, that's my pick as well, for obvious reasons. It's not, I didn't even consider Garver here, because Garver, yeah, has kind of figured it out as of late. He's been really good. Obviously, greatly helped the Mariners win last night. And with, Polanco specifically, it's the K rate, how much that's gone up. You know, I know that it has gone up each of the last few years, but I mean, he was striking out what 37% of the time or something like that for a while, and now it's what 30.9%, which is a full 5% up from his former career high, which was last year.
Mhm.
Like that is it's bad. And even though that he's counteracting that with the walks, like he's not hitting for enough production right now. Like he's had a few bombs, but that's really it. And yeah, it's been kind of a disaster over there. And we've just seen like these regressions in his game and certain elements of his game, specifically the swing and miss, that are really concerning. And you know, his bat speed is really down. I wonder how much of that is contributing to the issues. But also on that, right, we only have this year's bat speed data, so we have nothing to compare it to. So I don't know if his bat has always been slow. I don't know if it was like this last year where he was still hitting pretty well. But it is a slow bat, so I do wonder if that's part of the issue here. But yeah, it's been a major problem, and they're probably gonna have to do something about it, because I assume they're going to try, because he has 21 days on his rehab assignment. I would think, or I would suggest at least, that they use all of that time to work on some things and make sure that he's fully healthy. But even at that point, I don't know if they're going to have enough sample size to decide if they don't need to do anything at second base or not at the deadline. So we'll see. You know, to be honest though, there aren't many other options. So
yeah, and that's the thing with Polanco is I'm curious how much the hamstring has been an issue that just hasn't really been, I guess, told to us, because obviously it's hard. He had the hamstring issue last year. They're not going to tell us when a guy is just having a little bit of a problem. They're going to make it clear only when it's like, you know, they have to probably put him on the IL. So I'm curious if this has been nagging him like the whole year type thing. And if so, that could explain part of it, especially if it's a hamstring, right? Like the first thing I think of is that you know, your bottom half is really important for the power of your swing and getting your bat around, really. So if that's been a problem, that could be why the bat speed is so low. And hopefully this, you know, IL stint and the rehab assignment, he can get that finally just figured out and over with. And maybe we have the Jorge Polanco we've been hoping for when he comes back. However, you know, we don't know that. Like that's the hard part. Is I'm just, you know, theorizing here. This isn't anything I know for sure. So hopefully, because we really need a good second baseman, and I don't think Bliss is the, you know, long-term option, at least not for the end of the year. And at that point, what do you do? Dylan Moore, who's shown signs that like his Linsanity run's kind of over for this year potentially, like if you want to call it that. So it's annoying, because also it gives, you know, people who are very anti like front office a good spark to be like, oh, told you so, even though like, no, you didn't tell us anything about Jorge Polanco.
Well, no, that was the one deal that I think most people agreed was like, oh, okay, this is cool. Like we like Jorge Polanco. We all like Jorge Polanco. So no, can't really do it on that. You know, Luis Arias, I guess you can have your victory lap on.
We just gave up Isaiah Campbell though, so it's not even like that
but
bad of a deal.
Rojas ended up working out anyway at third, so it's fine. The more Rojas platoon essentially is more than fine. But yeah, this team has obviously some work to do. And Polanco does kind of feel like that guy, like if they are going to need to clear payroll at the deadline to add money at the deadline, he's probably a guy that gets involved in one of these deals just to dump some of that money that he's owed.
Moving on, we're going to go back into the positive stuff. What do you believe has been the best moment of the year so far? We'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I thought about this for a while, and you know, so much stuff has happened this season that it's kind of like hard to keep track of everything. I'm gonna go with Mitch Garver's walk-off against the Braves, because that was a game where they really had no business winning, which feels like a lot of games this year.
Pretty much.
And, Garver was struggling so much at this point. It was so random. It was so out of left field, quite literally.
Yeah.
Garver put a ball in left field, over the left field wall. So, it was nuts. It was nuts. That was pretty cool. I enjoyed that one a lot.
Yeah, a great moment, and that may come up later in the video again. We'll see. But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, I had to really rack my brain about this because, yeah, like you said, there's been so much that's happened this year, and thankfully, a lot of, I would say, positive things. Thankfully,
Yeah.
but I almost wanted to go with a walk off, but I did not go with the walk off. I went with Cal Raleigh's go-ahead home run off Josh Hader in early May. That ended
Ooh.
up winning us the game there. Every win against the Astros, of course, like makes it even better. And Hader was struggling at that point, so there's a bit of that. It wasn't necessarily like elite Hader at that point. However,
Yeah.
like what a moment! Just literally an absolute line drive into the Crawford boxes. Like it was a no doubter, and that really felt like the spark of like, hey, we are right now a better team than the Astros. Just plain and simple. I don't remember where that was in the series. I don't remember if that was the first or second game or whatever. So I couldn't tell you if that's like what won us the series or not. But still, I remember going insane when that happened. When Josh Hader comes in, you think the game's over. I think it was tied at that point because obviously that was the go-ahead home run. I think it was just a solo, but regardless, it was like Cal came up again. He's come up in the clutch so many times. He's done it since then too, a couple times. I'm gonna have to go with that. I think that was just an amazing moment, and to do it in Houston against the Astros just couldn't have been better. So
See, that's an example of me not remembering everything that's happened this season. I totally forgot that happened. I totally forgot about that. That's a great call, though. That's a really good call. Yeah.
The next one is going to be what has been the best pitching performance so far. Sounds like we probably both agree on this. So
yeah.
I picked George Kirby versus the Diamondbacks on April 27th.
Same.
Yeah. I'm a bit biased because I was there as well. So,
Oh, okay. There we go.
And I was sitting in the like left field bleachers, but like pretty far skewed into center field. So I had a really good like eye on the pitches and how they were moving, and I could tell from the start, like I didn't have to look at the speed, I didn't have to look at the game day. I could tell Kirby was on another level with his fastball, and he absolutely was. He went 7 innings, only gave up 2 hits against the Diamondbacks offense, which is not a slouch offense at all. Gave up no runs, only 1 walk, and 12 Ks, which is the most by a Mariners starter so far this year. So I guess it makes sense why it falls into this category. But yeah, this just felt like one of those OP George games where he just locks in and he finds that next gear. As I said, the fastball is up a tick, and he got 23 whiffs that game, which has to be one of his career highs probably. So yeah, and what do you have to say about that performance?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games where George just decided, screw you, I win. I control this game right now. Like this is my territory. I mean, just the 2 hits, the 12 strikeouts. He struck out Ketel Marte 3 times. He struck out Jock Peterson 3 times. Both of those guys are having really good years. Like, just flat out dominance. Like that's the George Kirby that I think about when I have picked him to win the Cy Young twice now in back-to-back years. That was the George Kirby I was hoping to see in Toronto this year. For my one time that I get to see him on a per year basis. I unfortunately did not get that version of George Kirby or anything really close to that, unfortunately. No, he was great. He was out of his mind in that game, and that was around the time where he was so wildly inconsistent. So for him to do that, it feels like that was kind of the turning point for his season. I know that he's had a couple of hiccups since then, but still, he's it's been a lot more like the George Kirby we need, frankly, since that point.
Yeah, and a couple more things about that start that make it, I think, really awesome is one, it was a really chilly, cold day at T-Mobile
Yeah.
Park, especially sitting in those left field bleachers. I was feeling it because that's exactly where the big hole in the fence
Oof.
in the thing was. And I even remember like during the fifth, sixth inning, you could see the rain just pouring, like it was getting blown in by the wind and going into
Mhm.
basically center field. And so the wind was crazy, it was chilly, and I was kind of just worried about the pitching matchup. And he was going up against Slade Ciccone, who had a really good game himself too. So he was
Yeah.
battling. It's not like he had an 8-run lead and he could just kind of settle down and do his thing. I mean, it was a pitching matchup basically until the end. So yeah, it was next level to see it in person, but also like there just hasn't been a pitching matchup that I feel like, or performance that's come close to it so far this year yet. I think the only closest was Bryce Miller versus the Braves was like the next,
Yeah.
maybe my number 2. So, but this one, I mean, 12 Ks is 12 Ks. So, I mean, I feel like a bunch of
Awesome.
pitchers can get that against us, but you know, hey, we
with these.
yeah, but it was nice for us to finally get that. So yeah, next one we're gonna do the best walk off so far this year. There has been like 5 total, I think, which has been really fun to watch, even though I wish games weren't that close all the time. But yeah, where are you at with the best walk off?
So I know I picked Garver's walk off against the Braves as my like best moment of the year, but I'm actually gonna go with a different answer here. I'm gonna go with recency bias and go with Big Dumper's grand slam against the White Sox.
Yeah,
Like I love the walk-off grand slam when all you need is like 1 or 2 runs.
yeah.
Like it's just the biggest. I can cuss on here, right?
Yeah, you can.
I can't remember. Okay. Yeah, it's just the biggest fuck you.
Yeah,
Like it's just the biggest like fuck you, eat shit. Like go away. Like
exactly.
I love it. Yeah. So that was awesome. And you know, he's just sitting fastball there on 2-0. Like he knows he's gonna get it, and sure enough, center cut fastball. I'm sending this thing 10, 15 rows deep over the right field wall. Like, yeah, good night. Bye-bye. Thanks for trying. See you tomorrow. Like, yeah, love it.
It was hard for me not to pick that, honestly, because that's what I was going to go to. I partially wanted to pick JP's against Houston, but it wasn't. It was a walk-off sac fly, so like that's the only reason I couldn't really pick it, is because it wasn't like a home run or a base hit. It was just a sac fly. So I'm gonna go with Mitch Garver's against the Braves, mainly because, like as you said earlier, didn't have really any business winning that game. It's against the Braves, but the main reason I picked that is because I think the clip of Garver just tossing his bat out of just sheer relief was like probably the best image.
He was all of
year.
us in that moment.
Yes, that was like that's gonna be such an iconic image for the 2024 Mariners, like going forward. I think probably one of my favorite bat flips of all time at this point, because it's not out of like, you know, it's not out of swag, it's not out of like I just kicked your ass. It's like, oh my god, thank God.
Finally, shit.
Yeah. So I'll have to go with that, just simply for that. I wanted to go you know, Big Dumper's grand slam, because the grand slam is dope, but you know, I just love that picture of Garver. So but yeah, now back to the depths of negativity we go. What has been,
or as Colby calls it, Tuesday.
Exactly, every single game before the 4th inning. So what has been the worst loss of the season thus far? And I think we probably both agree on that.
Yeah, do we even have to talk about this? It's still so fresh. The wound is so fresh. So like, all right, so you know, I talked about this on Lockdown when we were previewing the Kansas City series. And I was, you know, and I talked about that game in 2022 in September. They're up, what was it, 13-2, 11-2, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. That, even though it had no impact on the Mariners making the playoffs or anything they did that year, I have not gotten over that loss. And then last year it happened again, but thankfully they at least won. They at least you know, kind of pulled that out in extra innings. But I've always had that, for lack of a better term, PTSD from that game in 2022. Kauffman Stadium gives me literal nightmares. And so watching that play out again last Friday, It was triggering for me. My eyes started twitching, my stomach started getting upset. It was awful. I hated every single moment of it. So yeah, that's very easily the pick here.
Yeah. So if you aren't connecting the dots already, we're talking about game
Yeah.
one at KC. Yeah, I mean, Bryce Miller was footed with an 8-run lead, gave up 7 runs, which is like probably one of the most in his career thus far.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Stanek gives up 3 in the 9th to let the,
It was so crazy. It's like, dude, we finally got offense.
Yeah.
Like the offense looks good.
I know. Yeah.
What's going on?
It was
And then sure enough,
literally the one time this year the offense did its job and the pitching just shit the bed.
It's the monkey's paw. It's like you can only have one or the other. Like you cannot have both.
Yeah, there's that meme, that GIF meme of like Mariners like offense, pitching, defense, and then like the sliders.
Yeah.
It was literally that.
It's exactly that.
Yeah. So it's just I don't know what could be a worse. The worst loss of a Mariners like season has to be when the offense does what's supposed to do and the pitching doesn't, because we are so spoiled that the pitching does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
That when it doesn't, it feels like the world is about to end. So yeah, that has to be it. We don't have to talk about it much further. Thankfully the rest of these are positive ones. So
yeah, let's move on. I can't do this. I can't. My eyes starting to twitch again.
So I like to come up with kind of out of the box ones each time I do these types of things. So this one, I want to give a little love to the Mariners marketing team, because I do think they've done an incredible job this year.
Shout out Kevin Martinez.
Exactly. So what has been the best promotion put on by the Mariners marketing team thus far? This one, I picked Sauce's Posse. You think it has to rhyme. It's not Saucy's Posse.
Is it not Saucy's Posse? I thought it was.
Well, the way it's spelled is Sauce's Posse. So
really,
yeah, I think so. Maybe I'm wrong.
I thought the shirt said Saucy's Posse.
Maybe it is, because that would make sense. It should rhyme. So Saucy's Posse.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that just because, like, one, shout out to the Mariners marketing team.
Is this like a Berenstain Bears thing? Like
maybe it's a Mandela effect.
Yeah, it's the Mandela effect. Like,
probably. But yeah, I thought, one, you have to give the marketing team kind of their kudos for kind of recognizing something outside of just like what's going on in the games, and something that's catching heat. Obviously, Saucedo is like the most likable guy on the team probably at this point. And I also, outside of just this promotion, I think the whole, we play 9 innings and give me Munoz stuff have been really fantastic memes, and also like rally time things for the Mariners this year that have like just caught a life of their own at this point. So yeah, I'll have to go with that, just for the awareness outside of just what's going on the baseball field, and what's going on in his Twitch chat with like 40 people watching. They're catching on to stuff like that. So yeah, I'll go with that.
That's my favorite thing about Sauce's Twitch, is like it's not a lot of people in there. Like we all know about it, we all know it exists, but like hardly anyone is ever in there whenever I go in there. I love that. I love how like intimate that is. It's awesome. And he's hilarious. He is still to this day, and it hasn't been that long ago since since I interviewed him, but he's by far my favorite interview that I've done on Locked On. Like he's awesome, and like he's someone that like I feel like he and I would get along. Like I feel like Sauce and I could like actually like hang out. Like he likes Kid Cudi, he likes video games. I'm like, yeah, like you're my kind of people. Yeah. I'm gonna go. See, the issue for me is like I don't live in the area, so I don't go to the ballpark. So I really like, all due respect to Kevin Martinez and everyone over there doing all that lovely work, I could not care less about the promotions because they don't apply to me, right? I would love the bobbleheads. I actually end up buying some of the bobbleheads on eBay. I don't know if you can see behind me. I got Thumper, I got Ichiro Hall of Fame bobblehead, but and I have the pop figures too. But I have to buy those like secondhand. I'll go recency bias. Let's go Buhner Buzzcut. That's always a good one. That's always fun. I would be even more excited about putting it as my answer here though if they got Logan Gilbert to shave his head instead of Cal. Just lean into the whole Walter White thing, right?
Yeah,
he's got the goatee grown out a little bit now. Like just have him shave his head.
Yeah.
And he's Heisenberg full time. Like, it would
Yeah.
be great.
The next one we're going to do is, what game do you wish you were present for?
I have every game but the Toronto series to pick from here, so I have a lot of
Yeah.
options.
Yeah. So what did you wish? I just stuttered a lot. Jesus
Uh,
Christ, I'm going to cut that out.
Thought about a couple of games here. I'm gonna go recency bias again. I'm gonna go the dumper walk off, because it's not just the dumper walk off, it's also the Luke Rayleigh bunt.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that sounded electric in that ballpark. So I would have loved to be there for that, to experience that madness, that absolute psychotic decision by Luke Rayleigh.
I'm curious though, if I told you before this even started that one of the most hype moments of the year has been a Luke Rayleigh bunt, would you believe me?
No. Like, I look, I was aware of Luke Rayleigh when they traded for him, right? I was aware of the year that he had. I was not familiar with how crazy this dude is, though. Like, this guy is awesome. I love Luke Rayleigh. Like, like, I completely underestimated the impact that he would have just from like a vibes standpoint, right? Like, he has, like, he's a dude. Like he brings energy. Like, it's awesome to watch. Like, he's so much fun, and he just, again, he'll just do some crazy shit like that too. It'll work, right? Because it's one thing if you do crazy shit and it doesn't work, and then you just look like an idiot. But it's like, he picks his spots pretty well to kind of just go off the rails, like we saw in that game. So yeah, he's been a lot of fun.
For me, I picked a walk-off as well, but this one I picked JP's walk-off against the Astros on May 29th, just because
Love it.
an Astros Mariners game, I've been wanting to go to one of those for a while now, and I just haven't been able to. So that alone, like, the vibes are already probably insane. Also of note, that was the Verlander versus Kirby start. They both pitched really well, so like that would have just been cool to see Verlander pitch in person, you know, even though he's on the opposite team. Like, just seeing kind of a Hall of Fame guy
For
pitch.
sure.
Why
Hall
not?
Famer. Yeah.
So that would have been cool. And then of course, you know, the walk-off was nice, even though it wasn't some big home run or whatever. Like, walk-off is a walk-off. So I think I would have been going.
Oh, and I guess the Astros doesn't matter.
Yeah,
just get it done.
And probably I would have been
Yeah.
the guy who thought that was, you know, 20 rows deep, and then because I just have the worst depth perception at these games. But still, very, very fun time. I wish I was there. Next in, this one was probably the hardest one for me to pick. The next one is, who has been the team's Cy Young so far this year?
For me, it's Luis Castillo still. I know he got off to the rough start on the year, but Castillo has shown us what a real ace looks like, I think. And that's, you know, some nights he's not going to have his best stuff, but he can still battle. He can still keep it close. He's still going to give you a chance to win. And he's done that more often than not. I mean, yesterday is a great example. Like, he gets mashed around by the Rangers in the first inning, gives up a couple runs, and then from that point forward, nope, you're not scoring again. Like, game's over for you guys. Like, fuck you. Like, here's 6 scoreless or whatever it was last night. That's kind of what still separates him from Kirby and Gilbert in my mind, because those guys are still prone to the big blow up start. Now, and I'm not saying that like Castillo is above giving up 6 or 7 runs at the start, but I just feel like that is significantly less likely than it is to happen to like Kirby or Gilbert still. And those guys are still very young. Like, they're eventually, I have no doubt in my mind, they're eventually going to get to that point where, like, look, I don't have my best stuff, but I'm going to make it work no matter what, and I'm going to give my ball club a chance to win. But that's who Castillo is right now. He has been the stabilizer, essentially. And look, for as good as the rotation has been, and obviously it's the biggest reason the Mariners are in the position that they're in right now. They've been kind of streaky in the rotation over the course of the year, and again, you know, Castillo's kind of helped stabilize that, especially since, you know, that those first few starts of his this year, where he just wasn't that guy. He looked a lot like that guy that we saw in September, which is not what you need Luis Castillo to be. But since then, been great. He's been all-star caliber, and yeah, he's still, to me, the rotation ace for the Mariners.
Like I said, this was probably the hardest one for me because I wanted to pick a starter, but I wasn't really sure. I almost picked Gilbert in the sense of his biggest games have came against like your division rivals. He had a 8 inning masterclass in Houston. He pitched really well against the Rangers earlier this year. But I want to go a little out of the box, and I did go with Andres Munoz because,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
hey, that's a
yeah,
great choice as well.
yeah, and
Yeah,
the reason why, even though you normally would give this type of thing to a starting pitcher, is because he has been the only guy in your bullpen, the only guy, and he has been
that's
tasked with
very good
being
point.
the only guy, and he's only blown one save, right, in Milwaukee. So he has a
Yeah,
1.61 ERA. He has 38 strikeouts in 28 innings. This was as of before last night's game, I think. So that's up a little bit now. And a .98 whip. And 4 saves that he's done have been more than 3 outs.
that's kind of the biggest part, right?
Yeah.
And like he was asked to he was asked to have a 4-out save like the second game of the year against the Red Sox. Did that. Uh, he's had a 5-out save twice this year, I believe.
Yeah.
Like that's what's been so impressive, right? Is being asked to go multiple innings and him coming through. Yeah, he's been lights out. That's a great pick.
Yeah, he's only given up 3 earned runs all year. And the other caveat I want to put onto it is he's done all of this supposedly with a back issue this whole year since the game 2, which we didn't even know of until, a week and a half ago. So the fact he's done all of that with a nagging back issue, for me, even gives it more credence of just how good he's been. Because imagine if he didn't have the back issue. I mean, geez, like how even better, like somehow. And he at this point, he's probably maybe your only all-star candidate potentially. I don't know, like not on the pitching front. I think there's fine, but you can't really none of the position players in my opinion have earned that. And
yeah, for sure.
So I'm going to go with Andres Munoz. He's been the fact that he's been able to do what he's been able to do with no Brash to help, with no Santos to help. He's been the only guy that you really can rely on, and he has got into that role and crushed it. I feel like he's been valuable to you. He's won you games straight up, just being
100%.
Going into the last award, which I think is the most obvious one, as far as of course we had to do this. Who's been the team MVP so far this year? I went with Luke Raley, because
I like it.
And more of an all-around reason. It's not just his bat, it's just who he has been for this team. Obviously his bat's been fine and good. He's been one of your best hitters. He has a 116 WRC plus on the season right now. I wish he wasn't platooned as much, but whatever. But he's basically tied for your best WRC plus amongst qualified hitters with Ty France. But outside of his bat, obviously he is an absolute beast on the base paths. He is beating out infield singles. He is making stuff happen that way. His defense is rock solid. He had an insane robbing home run. I think it was the White Sox. No, it wasn't White Sox series. Was it Reds? I don't remember, but I'll put it on the screen. You'll see it. He jumped over the wall and robbed it. That's what rob home runs, I guess, are anyways. But good description from me. And of course, the insane bunt against the White Sox changed the game on a bunt.
Right.
It's just ridiculous. And then lastly, of course, he's just a great clubhouse guy. Clearly, he is the dude who clearly wants to win, and he's becoming a leader even though he's only been with the team for a few months now. So I feel like all around you have to give Raley a lot of credit for the success of this team.
100%. Yeah, he's been awesome this year. I went with Cal Raleigh, which I know it's crazy to say someone that's slashing 207, 284, 401 so far this year is the MVP of a division leader. But he has been. I think that's pretty clear cut when you think about, like, I mean, we just, over the course of however long we've been recording this, we've talked about the numerous times he's come through in the clutch. On top of that, he's catching basically every day. He's been taking balls off of thigh, balls off of the cup area, balls off of his thumb and his hand. He's got hit in the hand by a bat. He's working with one of the most diverse groups of pitchers in the league with a lot of different stuff. And they're the best pitching staff in all of baseball. Um, everything that he like everything like the success of this team kind of runs through Cal. I think that's a really good way to put it. Is like from the pitching side of things, from the late game heroics, like a lot of this has run directly through Cal Raleigh. He's a leader in this. I think the Mariners have two captains, JP and Cal. For a while we just kind of talked about JP, but I think Cal is very clearly that guy as well. And maybe the clubhouse even views him more so than anyone else as kind of the captain of the team. Because again, it's what he does with the pitching staff should not go unnoticed. The fact that he plays hurt, that he posts no matter what, is pretty remarkable. The amount of times he's been asked to catch this year, no matter the situation. I mean, the guy had a broken tooth in his face and he insisted on playing down in Texas and hit a home run. Like he is the dictionary definition of dog, right? That's basically who Cal Raleigh is.
I definitely agree on that. Just the amount of times he's come up clutch this year in general. I mean, he's also been a guy who's won you games, like with just singular moments, even if his slash line doesn't reflect it. And people can't, you really can't, when talking about catchers, you cannot really understate how valuable a catcher who is as good of a leader and as good of a clubhouse guy and as good of a just overall help like Cal Raleigh is to a team, regardless of his slash line. Like that stuff is huge because our pitching staff is great and we already knew that, but part of the reason it's great is because of him and because of guys like even Garver are going to be putting an input there that helps them. But Cal Raleigh and I mean the pitchers have said as much, that Cal is like the guy who they can attribute a lot of success to. So I definitely agree with that pick as well. That's going to be it for the almost mid-season rewards. I think that's what I'm calling it. I would love to know what you guys think down in the comments below as far as just any of these things that we've talked about. I think there's a lot of fun prompts that you guys can answer down below in the comments there. Of course, like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's free. It helps me out a lot. If you don't know Ty from Locked On, which would be kind of shocking, if you haven't, go look at it. I have some links in the description for him, of course, and Locked On Mariners is, the biggest Mariners podcast there is, so not exactly very hard to find them there. Just go listen to their stuff. They know what they're talking about if you want to know what's going on in the Mariners sphere. But that's going to be it from me in this one, and I will see you in the next.